Awesome. We are recording this. And just again, remember that you can always rewatch these sessions anytime during the week, and you can always find out what we're doing and just kind of review anything I said. Today, again, guys, thanks for muting your microphones, and we're just going to cover what we did last week and kind of move on with what we're doing this coming week. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen with you, and we'll get started. Let's see here, share screen. Let's get into it. All right, so let's see here. So for today, let's take a quick look at the syllabus, and there we go. So okay, so last week we had a we didn't have anything to hand in last week, but last week basically we got started on our essay, we got started on our summaries. Basically, you should be started with everything at this point. Now remember, there's only there's 4 essays in a semester, and we're always going to be working on an essay. For every essay that we write, I'm going to give you 2 readings to summarize. And so really, at the end of the day, there's only 3 things you're going to hand in for every essay project we do. 1 is the essay. 2 is all the process stuff together in one document. I'm going to show you a little bit more about how to do that today. And then 3 is your summaries. So you're summarizing those 2 readings that I had you start to read last week. You should have read them by now. And at this point, let's take a quick look on week 4. So not this week, but next week. Next week on Friday, you should have your summaries done, and you need to hand those summaries in. So let's just quickly review a little bit about summarization. And I want you to not, I don't want you to freak out on this. This isn't that, difficult of a project. I know for many of us, maybe we're not used to doing summaries. So, but don't stress out. I expect the first ones to be the worst ones, and I expect them to get better over time. Okay, so don't freak out on this. Again, these are very short. So for instance, if you take a look at the example summary, you're going to see kind of what I'm looking for. The first sentence in the summary is going to give you the title of the reading. So both of them have a title. Let's just suppose we're talking about the subway paradigm shift. If you take a look, you could say you could say article, or you could say narrative in this case, because that's a little bit more accurate. You could say in the narrative, and you notice how there's quotation marks there. Well, the title of every reading that you do, you're always going to put them in quotation marks. And we're going to learn more about this as the semester goes on. This is how we're kind of easing into MLA format, but we'll get to that as we continue to work through the semester. But right now, just think about this, the title of everything you read. So the title of every narrative, of every essay, of every article that you read, we always put those in quotation marks. It's not the title of a book, it's the title of an article, a narrative, an essay, something like that. And then, look, the next thing is the author. So in the first reading, you have the author's name. In the second reading, you don't. So in the second summary, you might say, in the article, Learning to Play Chess narrative, in quotes, the narrator, right? Because we don't know the person's name, so we'll just say the narrator, describes the process of earning her father's respect through learning to play chess. Okay. Now you'll notice that first sentence kind of encapsulates the gist of the reading. You'll notice in this example, shares tips for student success. Okay, that's kind of a general overview of what the article or whatever the reading is, kind of just a general thing. This is essentially what happens in this reading. The rest of the article, or I'm sorry, the rest of the summary literally is, you've got the first 2 sentences that kind of gives a general overview, but the rest of the summary, one of the guidelines is this. Another thing is this, right? A third thing is this. The rest of the summary is just giving a list of the things that were brought up in the reading. Now, on a narrative, you might not say the first thing that happened was this, the second thing that happened was this. You might say the story started in a subway that was quiet. The narrator describes, then the narrator describes children running into the subway with their father, and they were incredibly loud and noisy. And then what happened next? Okay, the next thing that happened is that you might say the next sentence, you might say, the noise and the bustle bothered the narrator, so he felt like he should say something to the father. Okay, there's a sentence right there. When he said something to the father turned and said that the children's mother had just died and they weren't sure how to handle it. Okay, there's a sentence. And then the next, maybe the last sentence of the summary might be something like, this changed the paradigm of the narrator, period. He saw life in a whole new way after this experience. Okay, and there's your summary. All right, and so you do the same thing for both of those readings, and you've got your summaries done. Now, the nice thing is these two summaries, they don't have page numbers and there's no works cited to worry about. I just want you to get the hang of basic summarization. So just focus on, okay, what happens in these readings? What is the general thing, that you're going to have to talk about in the very beginning? This particular example has 2 sentences. You wouldn't have to have 2 sentences to provide a gist of what happens. You could do just one. It's up to you. But take a look at this example. It gives you an approximation of what I'm looking for. Okay, so those 2 things I want you to start working on if you haven't already started. I know some of you guys have already finished because some of you guys have already handed things in, and I don't want you to work so far ahead because I do want you to be able to take advantage of these sessions. So if you've already handed it in and you want to make some adjustments, just let me know and I'll be happy to let you make those adjustments, because it's not due until next week at Friday midnight. Okay, so we're in week 3, so you don't need to hand any of those things in. Those summaries aren't due until next week on Friday. Okay, so that's just an overview of what you should be doing with your summaries. Again, when it's time for you to hand those summaries in, you go to homework and assignments, and then you're going to go to the Essay 1 project materials folder, and then you'll scroll down and you have summary of reading 1, summary of reading 2. It doesn't really matter which summary goes to which number, as long as you hand them both in to one of these 2. So you could hand in the subway paradigm shift to reading 1 or 2, as long as the other one goes to the other link. Okay. So having said that, the other thing that we were working on last week, I asked you to read, let's see, wrong syllabus. All right. I asked you to take a look at those videos. So there were, I think, 4 videos that I asked you to watch. And those 4 videos really, after watching those, you should have a good idea of what this essay is all about. You should have an idea of invention activities. Now, I did get an email with a little bit of confusion as far as what invention activities are. And basically, when I say invention activities, I mean brainstorming, clustering, and free writing. Those 3 things are invention activities. So sometimes you'll hear them referred to as brainstorming, clustering, and free writing. Sometimes you'll hear them referred to as invention activities. Just know that those are the same things, okay? So you learned how to do brainstorming, clustering, and free writing. You learned how to do audience awareness. At least try to perceive who you're telling your narrative to, who you're writing to, and how you're going to explain. What needs to be explained, what should be kind of a given, what's important to bring up, what's not an important thing to bring up. You got to hear my embarrassing story about when I was a kid and I ruined my soda and all that stuff, right? So you should understand at this point that I'm not asking you to tell some amazing, I was the hero of this story type of a narration. I just want you to tell a story from your life that teaches some kind of a lesson, okay? And then this week, let's take a look for this week. So you didn't have to hand anything in last week. Nothing was due. So week 3, okay, so I want you, by the end of this week, I want you to complete your brainstorming, clustering, and free writing. I want you to try all 3 of those invention activities. In the future, you can just pick one, but for this one, I want you to at least try, just at least try all 3 of them. Also, I want you, by the end of this week, you should have completed your audience awareness paragraph, yeah. So just watch that video if you forget how to do it, and I explain what I'm asking you to do, okay? This week, I want you to learn about, so we've got more videos to watch, and if you haven't already taken a look, I've added 2 more videos about thesis statements and outlines. So if you go to our Essay 1 folder and go to our lectures for Essay 1, you click there, and oh my gosh, there's more, okay? So what I want you to do, I want you to watch, and I want you to get started on your outline. So there's a video on Essay 1 outlining, and then Essay 1 thesis statements, because thesis statements, I want to really kind of go into that a little bit more in depth. Take a look at those. Now, I will warn you, my outlining lecture is almost 22 minutes long, okay? So it's a little bit longer than the other lectures, but combined, you're looking at about a half hour of video. Last week, you watched more than a half hour of video if you watched all of those videos. So technically, it's less, it's shorter lecture times for you guys this week. And if you think about it, it's way better than having to sit through 3 hours of these lectures. This is what I would be going over if we were in person. So I kind of had to condense things, but you can watch them over and over again if you miss something, or if you feel like you need to watch them again. You can always watch them over and over again, but make sure to watch them this week and get started on these things, okay? They're not due until, remember, everything, you'll hand in all this stuff together in one Word document whenever you hand in the essay. And let me just briefly show you how this works. I'm going to go ahead and just start a new Word document, okay? Because by the end of this week, you should be done with your invention activities, right? The brainstorming, clustering, and free writing. And maybe you're like me. Maybe with clustering, it's kind of hard to do it on, I do it on I've got my stuff written down by hand. Maybe you want to write it all down by hand. That's fine. And I encourage you to do whatever you're more comfortable with. All you got to do is as we go about this, we're going to start a new Word document. And then maybe what you can do is you're going to insert, you can either insert a picture, right? If you do insert picture from this device, right? And then you've got to find the picture, okay? So maybe I've got a picture of my homework I'm going to put on there. You can insert that. Cool. That's all I want, okay? And so you'll just continue to add to this document. So maybe that's your clustering, okay? Maybe page 2, you're going to do your free writing, and maybe you write a half a page. You can type a half a page. Basically, what you should be doing, and this is going to be for every essay we write. But by the end of this week, I want you to at least have this started. You don't have to hand it in to me, but this is something I want you to keep, and I want you to keep adding to until eventually, whenever we hand in the final draft of the essay, you're also going to hand in all of these different smaller assignments. And over the course of the semester, if you hand in all of your homework, so this is considered homework. This is the process stuff. And if you hand in all of this, for every single essay, okay, you get all the little things done, the outline, the free writing, the brainstorm, you do the audience awareness, all those little things together. It's 25 points per essay. And after the whole semester, as long as you just did your homework, and literally just doing your homework, just getting it done, that's 100 points, which is 10% of your semester grade. So as long as you're just keeping up with this homework, and then you're handing it in, whenever we hand in our essays, you're going to get, it's like a midterm or a final, 100% A. It's like acing a final. All you have to do is just make sure you're always doing your homework, keeping up with it, and handing it in when it's due with your essay. So again, by the end of this week, you should have started this document. Again, it's not due to me until the essay is due, but by the end of this week, make sure you've got your brainstorming, clustering, free writing. You know, maybe you're going to have, maybe you would type your audience awareness paragraph, but maybe you just write it down. It's fine. As you can see, what I did here is I just took a picture with my phone. I brought it over into my computer. I slapped it on this paper, and it's all good. What you can do too, if you don't like doing, oops, wrong thing here. Let's see here. If you don't like the idea of using the word insert and all those things, the Word document thing here, like clicking insert and all that stuff, you can also just drag it over. So like if you have a picture, here's a picture, I can just drag it into the file, and there, now I have two pictures. So you can just drag it into the Word document. You don't have to do, you know, the steps that I did before. It's super easy. And of course, if you're using whatever program you're using, if you're using Google Docs or if you're using Pages through Apple, it doesn't matter. As long as you get it in there, and then when you hand it in, it's a PDF or a Word document, you're good to go. Okay, having said that, so let's see here. So what we're doing this week is we're going to complete those two things, and you're going to have the file that you started, just like what we talked about. And then I want you to learn about thesis statements and outlines, and I want you to get started on those. Okay, they're not, I don't expect you to have those done until next week on Friday, but I want you to really get started and really start working on, okay, what story am I going to tell? How am I going to put this story together? And if you think about it, I want you to, you know, I gave you these examples, the example readings, to kind of give you something to go on. Now they're super short. Yours will probably be longer than these. But if you take a look at the subway paradigm shift, and you look at my video about the narrative arc, okay, so if you haven't watched my video about the narrative arc, you're going to have trouble understanding what I'm about to say. But if you take a quick look at this, right, we have an introduction paragraph, and the introduction doesn't tell the story, okay? The introduction gives the thesis statement and the concept behind what we're about to tell the reader, but it doesn't tell the story yet, right? It talks about paradigm shifts, and it gives the thesis statement. Our paradigms, correct or incorrect, are the sources of our attitudes, behaviors, and ultimately our relationships with others, okay? So it's a super short introduction. It's only 3 sentences long. Your introduction will probably be longer. But basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to give our readers some kind of a starting point and an idea of what it is we're about to teach them. And then if you take a look at the paragraphs, go back to my video from last week about the different steps on the narrative arc. You're going to find those, right? We have a setting. Really, the first 2 paragraphs pretty much gives you the setting. And then we've got whenever there was some kind of action, right? Well, actually, the second paragraph talks about the action that changed something. And then we have another paragraph that adds to that. Then we've got the paragraph where the main character takes some kind of an action, right? That's going to result in learning the lesson, but we have to take that action. Okay, then we have what we consider the resolution, and then we have the conclusion. Okay, so each paragraph has a function, and you need to think about your story. Where are the parts of the story that needs to go in what spot? I need to tell it in a certain order. I need to tell it in a way that my reader is going to understand. Nothing's worse. I don't know if you guys have any friends who just love telling jokes, but they're terrible at telling jokes. Like, because, you know, I don't know if you've had this experience, but a lot of times a person will try to tell a joke and they forget a part, and then they have to go back and tell that part. But by the time they do that, it's not funny anymore because now you know the punchline. Well, that's the whole point of outlining your story. You want to make sure you're telling it in a way that it's maximal effective, right? Something you want to tell it in a way that it's enjoyable to read. You want to tell it in a way that you're not giving anything away that you don't want the reader to know. And it needs to go in that order of that narrative arc. So rewatch those videos don't feel like you're just done with them, never look at them again. Those videos, I leave them up so that you have access to them so that you can continue to rewatch. Take a look as you read or as you watch my video about outlining. Think about the examples that I gave you. How do they outline? Each paragraph does a different thing in this example. And that's what your stories should be too. Each paragraph should do a different thing. And then once you're done doing that, you're moving on to the next, okay? So think about, okay, I need to introduce this concept. I need to lay out my thesis statement, which is what I want to teach. That's the lesson. I need to provide some kind of a setting so my audience knows when and where. In my story, you needed to know my age. That was really important because if, a 40-year-old guy is not aware that if you add water to soda pop, it's going to ruin it, then it's just like a whole different story, right? So it's important that you knew that I was a little kid, and so for your story, okay, what are the important things that my reader needs to know? Well, that should be in your first body paragraph. That should be in your setting paragraph. So think about the things that you need to tell your audience in that first body paragraph so that the rest of the story makes sense. Then think about, okay, they need to know what happened to make this incident memorable, right? So for instance, in this example, the man, then suddenly the man and his children entered the subway car. The children were so loud and rambunctious that instantly the whole climate changed. So that is the change. That's the thing that makes this story worth telling, right? If it was just a story where you're sitting down on a subway and it was quiet and then the end, no one really cares, right? And that doesn't really teach a lesson. So you need to tell us what changed, what was the thing that caused the change to happen, or what was the thing that made there be a problem that needed to be solved. Maybe it's not necessarily someone running in and making a bunch of noise, but maybe it's like, I knew at this point I had a problem. And think about my story, right? Think about the story when I was a little kid. The thing that changed wasn't anything major. It was that I perceived that I didn't get enough soda and my sister got more than I got. That was what changed. Okay. It wasn't like someone ran in and told me something. It was, okay, I was a little kid. My mother gave my sister and I, we got to split a can of soda, and I thought that she got more than I got. That was what changed. And that's what led me to making the decision, right? I told you a little bit more about the thing, but I eventually made the decision, okay, I'm going to go put water in my cup. And, I felt very happy about that. And I felt very like I had really accomplished something awesome. And then, so that was that paragraph. And then the next paragraph would be, then I sat down and I took a drink and I realized it was awful. I had ruined my soda. I would describe it, give your reader really more to really try to put them in that place. A narrative essay is the closest thing that you're ever going to have to making another person experience an experience that you've had, right? So you can tell people, hey, I've had these experiences, but unless you can tell the story, there's no way that they're going to understand it. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to construct this essay in a way that anybody who reads it they'll be able to understand it. They're going to get the whole point, the reason why you're telling the story. They're going to learn that lesson. Now you're going to notice at the end of this subway paradigm shift, this paragraph, it talks about his reflection, about how he felt, and then he brings it back, right? He starts talking about paradigms again. He doesn't use the word paradigm in this essay except for at the introduction and the conclusion. Because remember what he's doing in his conclusion, he is wrapping up, he is telling the reader, again, remember that thesis statement I told you about earlier? How our paradigms, correct or incorrect, are the sources of our attitudes and behaviors and ultimately our relationships with others. Okay, well down here, can you imagine how I felt in that moment? My paradigm shifted. So what he's doing is he's reminding us of that thesis statement. He's reminding us of that lesson that he's trying to teach us. And then he gives us a lot of kind of like, then what happened, okay? And he closes it up. Everything changed in an instant, right? So definitely look at these examples. You probably, you know, like I said, your essays will be longer than this. And that's totally fine. It's normal. Generally, novice writers need more space. They need more words to say what they need to say. Stephen Covey is a world-renowned author. So, I mean, he uses every single word he uses here has a purpose. And so he didn't need that many words. But for everybody else, think about, okay, I just need the main goal here. The main goal is to get this point across, right? Is to prove this thing, this thesis statement, this point that I want to make. I want to prove this point, and I need to tell a story to prove the point. That is your goal, okay? And again, rewatch the videos you already watched. And then also this week, you're going to need to watch the video about outlining and thesis statements, okay? And you should have a pretty good understanding about how those things work by the end of this week. Okay, having said that, I want you to begin outlining your essay 1, okay? So you'll begin that outline. And then you should be done with your outline by next week, okay? By next week on Friday, you should be done with your outline. And I want you to be done with your rough draft by next week, okay? So typically, this is approximately what I would advise you to do, okay? It's Monday today, and you've got some time. You've got some time before you need to get your draft done. Here's what I would recommend. If I were you, by the end of this week, I would be done with my outline. I would really, really try to be done with my outline. I'm not going to say you have to have it done until next week on Friday, but I would recommend that you, in your mind, say, I need to have an outline done so that by the end of next week, I can have my rough draft done, okay? Because you're not going to want to just finish your outline and your rough draft on the same day. So my advice to you, start this week out, watch those videos, and go ahead, as you're even watching, think about how you're going to outline your essay. And then as this week goes by, I'd recommend, okay, I'm going to work with this outline. It's not set in stone. No outline is ever set in stone. So you might change it, but you're going to grow the outline into your essay. All right. And by the end of week 2, or not week 2, by the end of week 4, so by the end of next week, you should have your narrative completely written. And it should be as good as you can make it. And then what we're going to do the following week is we're going to do some peer review, okay? And that's where we look at each other's essay and we try to help each other so that by the end of week 5, we can hand in a final draft that we're proud of and that hopefully we've had some help on from other people in the class. Okay, so quick review and then we'll finish up. So this is week 3. Again, by the end of this week, you should have your brainstorming, clustering, and free writing and your audience awareness done. Many of you already have that done. You're going to watch those 2 videos on thesis statements and outlines, and you're going to get started on your outline, and you're going to work on finishing your essay, because we know that the rough draft is due, and you'll have to hand in your rough draft next Friday. Okay, so be thinking about that. Rough draft due next Friday. So get started, get serious about it, because there's a lot of things that are going to start coming due. Remember, because next week on Friday, we also have the summaries due. So you have 2 things that you're going to need to hand in Friday of next week. You've got 2 weeks, okay? So you got plenty of time as long as you use it wisely. Okay, having said that, that is what is due. That's where we are as far as this class goes. Nothing has to be handed in this week. Next week, we start handing things in. Okay, so having said that, any questions over what we just went over? And of course, always remember that you can always come back and you can rewatch this as well. Do we have class Labor Day? My kind of person. Thanks, Cole. Okay, so I was thinking about this. Since since I always do these on Mondays, here's what we're going to do. No, we're going to take the day off on Labor Day, and I want you guys to go have fun and get outside and just have a great Labor Day. Here's what I'm going to do, okay? I'm going to pre-record one of these, and I'll post it on like Sunday, or I'll probably post it Monday at some time during Labor Day, okay? I'll post it, and then you'll have the whole week to watch it. But you know, and I may even just post it on Tuesday, but I'm not going to require you to have like a Zoom call like this. And if you have any questions, you know, you can always email me that week. But as of right now, unless plans change, no, we will not have a live Zoom call on the week of Labor Day. I will pre-record one of these things for you guys, and that will be all. And I just want you to have a great day. Any other questions? Thank you, Cole. That's a good question. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and I'll close the class meeting. Thanks so much for being here. Good work so far. Looking at a lot of. So far, I've had some good questions, and so far we're working pretty well. Hopefully, everybody's able to get the books. I know some people were having a little bit of trouble getting those books, but this video is going to be available. You can rewatch this later today or tomorrow, or anytime between now and forever, from the end of the class, I guess. Guys, thanks so much. Have a good rest of your day. Enjoy your week, and I'll see you. Well, you'll see me at least in my video next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.